everyone, I'm sorry that this video is getting out to you a little late, much later than I intended, but work has been insane. The contract on the project that I've been working on, I'm a contractor for the government, ended this week, so now we're kind of in this transitional phase, so things have been kind of nutty. Trying to make sure that everything is in line, make sure that the team, me and my team, we actually have work for us lined up, or if we should start looking elsewhere. Turns out we have a project lined up, but it's going to take a while for it to get started. So basically, they have us on the bench on the promise that you will get a project. It's just a matter of like crossing the T's and dotting the I's and everything. But getting through those talks in that transitional phase kind of took up a lot of this week so far. And now that it looks like it's like, all right, they're keeping us, and we're actually going to be on another project. It's just a waiting game at this point. They have us at the office, the main headquarters, basically doing boring, busy work. So I'm not going to be doing a whole hell of a lot of work moving forward, at least for the next couple of months. But the good news is that means I can put more effort into my videos, and I have more time dedicated to that and watching wrestling and getting caught up on other things. So that's good. No working overtime or anything like that, which is nice. I also get to telework twice a week until this new project starts. I'm like, oh my god, that's sweet. I'm going to take full advantage of that, but in any case, yeah, I do apologize for the video coming out to you guys late. Wanted to get through a lot in this video, like a lot. I guess I'll start with NXT, and I talked about this a little bit last week, but bears repeating here. It has been made official that NXT will be moving to Wednesday nights on USA Network. I mean, it was already on Wednesday nights on the WWE Network, but now it's going to be on USA, Real TV. And it's going to be a 2-hour live show from Full Sail University every week. I said it last week, and I'll say it again here. And let's forget like AEW and the Wednesday Night Wars and all that other stuff. Let's just ignore that part of the conversation. I don't like this move, especially for NXT. They're taking something that was this cool little thing that was on the WWE Network that had an appeal to it because it was the developmental program and because it was basically 1970s wrestling with that style of booking with new age stars, and you get like angles and promos and squash matches, and all of it slowly builds to these takeover specials, and that's what made NXT so enjoyable. Now, if you put it on a live show, a live 2-hour show every week, to me, you lose a lot of the appeal of NXT. And all the talks about who's going to go move up to the main roster basically goes out the window because, all right, at that point, they basically are the main roster. They're just another part of the main roster. It's not like, it's just another Raw or another SmackDown at that point, to me anyway. And I've already talked about it, but it's like, all right, so it's a 2-hour show with a reduced roster. NXT has not been its strongest lately. I mean, this isn't even the version of NXT that we had in like 2015. I mean, this version that we have now is not bad, but it's not setting the world on fire like it had been previously, and now it's going to be a 2-hour show every week. And I'm like, not overly fond of that. And how are they going to account for the 2 hours? Well, they've got to have the champions on the show every week. Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, the members of the Undisputed Era, all the big stars, big by NXT standards, Velveteen Dream, they're going to have to be on the show every week to fill the time, and if they're on the show every week, they get overexposed like everybody on the main roster does, and it just becomes, it just becomes another Raw or another SmackDown. And again, sorry, let me adjust that. There we go. That's not what I want. That's not what a lot of the people that like NXT want. That's never what I wanted NXT to become. I liked it being its own little thing that was separate from Raw and SmackDown. And now it's just kind of becoming yet another example of the over-bloated programming of the WWE. And another way they're going to account for these 2 hours, I'm sure they're going to have main roster guys show up on the show, which I guess is NXT subject to that stupid wild card rule, which, oh boy, I love that so much. More of that, please. And So you're gonna have main roster guys showing up on NXT, and one of the reasons I like NXT is that I don't have to put up with the main roster. So it's just like I said. Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being negative, but to me, by doing this, they're taking a lot. They're taking away from what made NXT so appealing in the first place. And I'm just sitting here thinking, it's like, man, couldn't you have just given NXT like the first hour of Raw or something? That way, that would have fixed like the problem of Raw being too long, and NXT could have gotten on USA Network, and I think everybody would have been fine with that. But instead, it's just, yeah. It's they're just morphing it into something I don't think it should be, and that's not what I want. And that's not something I'm overly looking forward to. But again, maybe it'll be good. Who knows? I mean, I'll tell you this, at least in the early going, I'm going to watch AEW over NXT because I never watched NXT on Wednesday nights. I always just watched it on the network. That was just always my habit. I always just caught up with it while on the network, like sometime during the weekend. So, you know, I guess I'll just keep doing it. I mean, them putting it on the USA Network is not going to make me want to change my mind on that. So, yeah, I'm not overly hopeful with this, and it just makes me sad. It's like, oh, this thing that I enjoyed that the WWE made, and now it's being turned into something I don't want it to be turned into. But it was fun while it lasted. But yeah, and who knows? It might actually turn out to be pretty good. I'm not hopeful though. I am really, really not hopeful. And yeah. Anyway, moving on from there, I do want to talk about New Japan's G1 Climax, which I got caught up on this weekend, so I've finally seen the whole tournament, and I loved it. It was great. Once again, the G1 Climax turns out to be one of the things I've enjoyed the most in the wrestling year. It's become one of my favorite annual attractions, my favorite tournament to follow. And it's just a lot of fun, and I just really enjoy it. And this year, you know, having Moxley involved, who's clearly motivated now. I mean, you watch him in this tournament, it's like, you can tell, it's like, oh, the people that accused him of going through the motions in WWE, yeah, I think that's a fair criticism at this point, because this guy in New Japan is clearly motivated. So you had him to liven things up. You had Kenta to liven things up. He's another one, clearly motivated after an unsuccessful run in the WWE. What else? Yano continued to be an enjoyable presence on the show. I really liked his match with Ishii. If we're gonna judge it, like, what was my favorite Yano match of the tournament? Love the finish to the match with Moxley. I thought that was some good, taking advantage of the rules, shall we say. And Yano's just a hoot, and he provides something different from the other matches. He's the comedy spot show of the G1 tournament, and every time one of his matches comes up, you know what you're getting, and it's going to be a hoot, and I'm okay with that. I don't need every match to be 25 minutes long and finisher kickouts. I can just watch Yano do his bit, and I'm okay with that. You know, Ibushi, who ultimately won the tournament, was a delight to watch in this thing. He had great matches all around, and I was super happy to see him win it. I thought maybe they would give it to Jay White. They didn't, thankfully. They gave it to Kota. Kota, who's always been that guy that's like always on the edge and always kind of on the outside looking in. And now he finally broke through, and it, based on what he said in the press conference, it's like, okay, he wants to face Okada for the world title on night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom 14, and he wants to fight for the Intercontinental title on night 2. Right now the champion is Naito. Naito and Ibushi have been having matches all year long, and having one more at the Dome, I'd be okay with that. It's like, but God, after all these years of struggling to get to win the big one, could Kota walk out of Wrestle Kingdom, the 2-night spectacle, as a double champion? That would be really interesting. And the other big thing that happened that I think bears mentioning is Kenta's heel turn. He has joined the Bullet Club, which gives them a much-needed shot in the arm. And that's nothing against Jay White or the Gorillas of Destiny, who I think are great, by the way. I love the Gorillas of Destiny. And I like Bad Luck Fale. I like those guys, but they're just, after losing Kenny and Cody and the Bucks, they're missing like an X factor or something to like really give them a spark. And I felt like this heel turn, while Kenta doesn't necessarily fill the void of the Elite, he does provide, that heel turn was shocking, and it did provide that spark that the Bullet Club needs. And if this is setting up for a match with Shibata at the Dome, I'm all in favor of that. And like, okay, Shibata's return match against Kenta, who betrayed him and joined the Bullet Club. I want to see that. And if they can make that match happen, I'm in. And in addition to that, it looks like we're going to get Jericho versus Tanahashi, which is like the last major big star match that Jericho uh, could have in New Japan, because he's worked Naito, he's worked Okada, he's worked Omega. I feel like Tanahashi's like the last really, really big one that they can do with Jericho. So that's a cool match to have. We're getting Liger's retirement match, which I want to see that. Even if the match, like, I'm not expecting it to be the greatest match in the world, obviously, but just to see Liger's last match, I think that would be something special, and I think that's a really nice attraction for the show. So, Wrestle Kingdom shaping up to be pretty exciting, and I'm really looking forward to see how everything goes now that we're kind of in Wrestle Kingdom build-up season. Now that we've got the G1, it's like, all right, now it's like the road to Wrestle Kingdom, and we just got to wait for that show. And it's a 2-night event, which is something I've been saying WrestleMania should have done years ago. The longer and longer the show got, it's just, guys, just make it a 2-night show so it's not, complete overkill, and I can, like, pace myself and not get over-bloated with this all in one day. Wrestle Kingdom is doing that, which I think is a really good move, and it kind of frees them up to do a bunch of things on the show. So it'll be really interesting to see how they fill those 2 cards out, and I'm really looking forward to it based on what we're seeing so far. So yeah, the G1 I thought was stellar this year, and I thought there were some fresh faces that livened it up. Jeff Cobb was another one I thought provided a lot, and then you had the old standbys like Okada, who's always great, Tanahashi, who typically does very well, Zack Sabre Jr., who could work with just about anybody, and I'll love it, Will Ospreay, who added a lot, being a more junior heavyweight style guy, working with the heavyweights. There were just a lot of exciting matchups this year, and this one felt very, very fresh with a lot of the people that were put into it. So New Japan gets a thumbs up from me. I thought the G1 Climax was great. I love the Kenta heel turn. I love that Ibushi won the tournament. So a lot of things to look forward to moving forward, and I'm very happy with the direction of New Japan at this moment. So thumbs up there. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is something that I think I've mentioned before on this channel, but I've never done like a real in-depth review of the show Glow, which is on Netflix and just recently debuted its 3rd season. I watched season 1 at around the time that it came out. I did not watch season 2 for a long time. I actually didn't watch season 2 until the week before season 3 dropped. I kind of have this thing with TV shows where I'm just scared to death that the 2nd season is going to be a piece of shit. I call that the Mr. Robot effect, where it's like, 1st season, even though it's a ripoff of Fight Club, 1st season, really good. 2nd season, pile of shit. And completely killed my interest in the show. And some people would say that about Heroes, but I never watched Heroes, so I don't know. Like, I'm assuming that that's true, but like the 2nd season. What? I just almost knocked my microphone over again. I'm getting clumsy. See, this is what happens when I don't make my videos more regularly. I get really clumsy and silly, but very unpolished. We'll call it that. Very out of practice. But anyway, Glow was a show that I really enjoyed in its 1st season. And it's very unique as a wrestling fan to see a show that basically told the story or centered its drama around putting together a wrestling show. And yes, there was the Glow TV show back in the 80s, the all-women wrestling show. This is not a documentary by any stretch of the imagination, nor is it a reflection on true events. It's basically just taking that idea of the Glow TV show and constructing a drama/comedy around a bunch of women and screwballs getting together and bumblefucking their way through this show. And as a wrestling fan, I really, really appreciated seeing a show that was basically about the making of a wrestling show. And I really enjoyed the 1st season, and I really felt like all the characters, and there are a lot of characters in the show, because, it's a full roster of women. They've got like 15, I think, total. And a lot of them really stand out with their unique personalities. Sheila the She-Wolf, there's Ruth and Debbie, and their, personal dramas and wants and desires and all the things that are dragging them through the mud. There is Awesome Kong, Kia Stevens. Wrestling fans obviously know her very well, and I gotta say, I think she's my favorite character on the show. And maybe it's because I know her as Awesome Kong and I'm a wrestling fan and everything like that, but I think she's a legitimately well-written character, and I really... I think that Kia Stevens is a great actress. I'm watching the show and I'm like, wow, you're breaking my heart right now. You are great. She was the best part of season 3, but I'll get into that. But I think she's really, really good, and I think the wrestling gimmick that they gave her of the welfare queen is one of those like hilariously racist gimmicks where it's like, okay, there are other racist stereotypes in there, like Fortune Cookie in Beirut. Fortune Cookie, who's played by Ellen Wong, who I remember seeing in the Scott Pilgrim movie. I did not recognize her initially. It wasn't until I read the cast. I'm like, she was in Scott Pilgrim. I'm like, huh. She was Knives in that. And she was adorable in that. But anyway, total sidebar. But the welfare queen, that gimmick is so hilariously racist that it's like, okay, Fortune Cookie and Beirut, those are obvious, like, go-tos. But welfare queen, you had to think about that one. You actually had to put thought into that, and that makes me laugh. That one's really, really funny. And again, Kia she plays it so well, both as the wrestling character and as the person playing the wrestling character. And her struggles and everything that she deals with, especially in seasons 2 and 3. I think Carmen is really good, being the wrestling guru that everybody goes to for advice. She comes from a wrestling family and she just wants to wrestle, so she's stuck on this show with a bunch of girls who have absolutely no idea what they're doing and a bunch of weirdos. And she has to be the one that kind of like, she's like the wrestling encyclopedia that they go to and they trust, and she gives them advice and everything. So I really think she's a fun character. And pretty much everybody on the show is really good. I like the director, who's like this sleazy, broken down man, kind of stuck doing a women's wrestling show, but he's a dickhead, but he's a dickhead with a heart of gold, the old Mickey Goldmill type of thing. And I really like Bash Howard, the producer, who's like this wide-eyed, childlike wrestling fan who's got money, and he's like, I'm gonna put on my own wrestling show, and he's just eating it up every chance he gets. So the first season, as an introductory to all of that and all the characters and the personal dramas that they have, I thought was very good and very satisfying the way it ended. And season 2, which I was worried about because of my fear of a second season for a show I really like, turned out really well and kind of built off of everything that was done in season 1. And one of the things that I liked about season 2 was, and season 1 as well, is that a lot of the dramas that play out actually affect the wrestling show. So we get to see like the behind the scenes of putting together a wrestling show and how personal drama and personal bullshit affects the on-screen product. A great example came in season 2 where Debbie is going through a divorce and raising a child, and now she's a producer of the show. She's the top babyface, Liberty Bell, and she's just cracking under all the pressure and it's just going nuts. One night before a performance, right before she's supposed to have a big match with the top heel, Ruth, who's her former best friend, who cheated on her, who had an affair with her husband, which caused her divorce. So, which that was great in season 1. It's like, what do we always say as wrestling fans? It's always better when it's at least a little bit real, or at least feels real. So when those two characters are having this personal drama and they're picked to be the top heel and the top face, it just makes magic, and they have natural chemistry in the ring together. And I think that was a really good kind of storytelling device for a wrestling-based televised drama. And anyway, in season 2, so Debbie's like broken down, and in her broken down state, Debbie, who by the way is a barrel of awful in in so many ways. Again, season 3 is coming up, but one night she decides to snort cocaine right before she's supposed to go out there and work with Ruth. So she's basically unable to perform. Goes out there and breaks Ruth's leg. And that causes a whole shitstorm. So, you have like a real legitimate wrestling injury play out on this show while in the middle of a taping. And that stuff was really, really good to me. And so I loved pretty much almost all of seasons 1 and 2. Thought it was really well performed, really well written, and I loved the story and how everything played out. And then we get to season 3, which is still good. Again, the acting's really good, and there's some really good moments, but my biggest issue with season 3 and what disappointed me is that at the end of season 2, the show's being moved to Vegas because they lost the TV deal, so now they're going to become like a almost nightly stage show on Vegas. And I was like, ooh, let's see where they go with that. Let's see what interesting things come of that. They get to Vegas, as we see in season 3, and a majority of the season is them just running around Vegas and chasing other goals, and not so much focused on putting on the wrestling show, because they don't really seem to care about the wrestling show, because they put on the same exact show every night, and so they kind of get bored with it. And, Ruth is off wanting to get auditions. Sheila ditches her She-Wolf persona and decides to improve on her acting. And Liberty Bell, Debbie, she has other goals as a producer and as a parent. She's dealing with all that crap. And the show, as they say, it's like nobody's really in shape anymore, and the show's on autopilot. They say that multiple times throughout the show. So we don't really get a lot of focus on them putting the show together, which was the stuff I loved the most about seasons 1 and 2. And again, maybe that's me being a wrestling fan, but I was really disappointed that they kind of glossed over that in season 3. I was a little disappointed that they didn't focus as much on that. Not to say that the stuff they did was bad, like the camping episode was fine, and the episode on their day off where we get to see what they do on their day off was fine. But they didn't focus as much on putting the wrestling show together, and that kind of disappointed me. Especially since that was the real strength of, the major strength, at least for me, of seasons 1 and 2. Perfect example, I mentioned the whole cocaine incident with Debbie. In this season, she gets really self-conscious about her body, and she starts to develop bulimia. And that was like the major cliffhanger at the end of one of the episodes. Never brought up again. Never comes up. And I thought instantly when I saw it, it's like, okay, she's going to go out, she's going to get bulimic, and she's going to go out there and perform one night, and she's just going to pass out right in the middle of the ring. And they're going to have to deal with that. Never happened. Never comes up. Nothing happens, and that's it. Bash Howard, he's distracted with promoting other things and, keeping his marriage together because he gets married at the end of season 2 with an on-screen wrestling wedding, which those are classic, as most wrestling fans know. On-screen wrestling weddings are classic. So that takes up a lot of his time, and the director quits at one point and ultimately goes to help his daughter get her screenplay sold and help her make her movie, and dealing with his own health issues, and there's a love triangle involved, which I don't want to get into that. The love triangle, I don't give a shit. But I'm an unromantic slob. I don't give a shit about that crap. But so everybody's attention seems to be pulled away from the wrestling show, and nobody seems to care about the wrestling show because it's boring. And even Carmen, who's the wrestling guru, she's like, I'm bored with this. I want to do real wrestling. And her brother's like, yeah, why don't you come on the road with us? And so that comes into it. But the only things that really affected the wrestling show, they did one episode where everybody did a gimmick swap, which I thought that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that. And once again, the best part of season 3 was Kia Stevens, Awesome Kong, and she developed back injuries from taking so many back bumps from all these nightly performances that they've been doing, and ultimately develops back issues. And first of all, watching her get hurt is downright heartbreaking to see. And part of that, again, is because, it was devastating for me because I know Kong's a worker, and seeing a real worker kind of act out the real pain that wrestlers go through was kind of hit me a little close to home. And also, I think she's just a really good actress and sold it really well. It's like, the funny thing about her is that when she was in TNA and I really got exposed to her, I thought, man, they can never give her the stick because she's supposed to be this mindless, voiceless monster, and she's supposed to murder people. Never give her the stick. And now I'm looking at this show and I'm like, maybe they should have given her the stick. Maybe she could have done something really good with it. But in any case, I think she was the best part of the season. But again, they resolve it by making her a manager. And I'm like, okay, great. And they even reference Bobby Heenan and Lou Albano and all these other things. Like, yeah, when you get hurt, you just kind of transition to being something else, either an announcer or a manager or blah, blah, blah. And she was like, all right, I can be a manager. We never actually get to see her as a manager, which, again, the focus this season wasn't really on the wrestling show because nobody really seems to care about the wrestling show. And so I think there were some missed opportunities there. Also, the only other episode that really stands out to me as being about the wrestling show was the last episode, which was a Christmas special. So they decided to do a Christmas Carol in the ring, which that was really neat to see. I was like, okay, that was really creative and funny and kind of neat. And I could almost see maybe Vince doing something. He actually did. Didn't he do something with Roddy Piper? One a Christmas Carol with him on Tuesday Night Titans or something. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that could have happened even back then. And the only other thing I can think of, there was one episode where they all take a dance class to kind of get in shape for the wrestling because they talk about the shows are getting sloppy, and it's like, well, we never actually see that. Because again, compared to the earlier seasons, they talk about, okay, we need to have the girls compete against each other to have matches on the show because the matches are going too long and they're just kind of taking liberties and everything. So it's like, all right, we can't have everybody on the show. We've got to like have them audition matches for each episode. And that even plays to a whole thing where it's like the promoter, or basically the stand-in for the promoter, the director, is holding down one of the talents because he's mad at her. And again, like, this is real wrestling shit. And they talk about, like, oh, I can't go over because, or you can't go over because I'm on a winning streak and I'm the top face. It's like, well, I'm the heel and I need to build my heat. Again, as a wrestling fan, that's all the stuff that I find interesting. And I'm even yelling out booking ideas while I'm watching the show. It's like, book a schmoz! Dusty finish! It's like, Ruth can't work while she's hurt. Book a tag match! It's like, she can do a hope spot or something, you know? But season 3 just didn't feed into that, and maybe, again, that's me being a wrestling fan wanting something out of the show that maybe it shouldn't always be. I don't know. I'm not saying it was bad, and I don't want to sound like I'm ragging on it. It's just, what I liked about the first 2 seasons just wasn't there as much in season 3, and that's disappointing. But I'm still on board with the show, and it's like, all right, let's see how season 4 goes. And I'm not. I was a little disappointed with the season, but I'm not like off the ship yet. And it's like, okay, it's not like Mr. Robot season 2, that's for sure. But yeah, Glow, if you haven't seen it before, I do recommend it. If you're a wrestling fan, I think there's plenty to enjoy. A lot of funny cameos, especially in season 1. I think John Morrison was there. I think Carlito gets a guest spot in season 2. Carlito shows up a couple of times, which I marked out for Carlito. So there's some good stuff there, and it's. I think if you're a wrestling fan, it gives you plenty to appreciate. And if you like good televised drama, I think it's really solid for that as well. Because, like I said, the acting's really good, writing for the most part is really good, and I think it's an enjoyable show. So that's my recommendation. I haven't talked a whole lot about Glow, but having just watched the 3rd season, I will say, if you're a wrestling fan, the first 2 seasons are great. 3rd season, you might feel the same way I did, but I think it's still an enjoyable show. So take that from what you will. So that concludes all my wrestling talk. I do think it was very interesting that we're starting to get these things. I've heard that Stephen Amell, the Green Arrow himself, is going to be taking part in a similar show called Heels. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to check that out too. And man, Stephen Amell, he must really like wrestling, because he's one of the celebrities like, okay, I literally watched this dude have a match with Christopher Daniels, and he put him over. Which a majority of the time the celebrity goes over. I mean, that's just how this works. But it's like, no, I think Stephen Amell really likes wrestling. And he knows, like, no, the wrestler should go over here. I just want to have the match, and I just want to have fun. So, more power to him, and I look forward to seeing how the show turns out. And I'm sure Cody will get a guest spot on it, because they always appear on each other's shows. But in any case, yeah, so that concludes that. But I do want to talk about one other show that's coming to Netflix. Non-wrestling related, so if you don't want to hear me talk about non-wrestling related stuff, just turn it off right now, because this might bore you. But those of you who know me know that I'm a big fan of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. It's something that I grew up with. You can kind of see my stuff on the shelf here. I showed this off, my cartoon-accurate He-Man action figure released by Super 7. I have a few of them. I have He-Man, I have Skeletor, I have She-Ra, I've got a few of them. But it was announced earlier this week that a new He-Man show would be coming to Netflix with Kevin Smith of Clerks fame as a, I guess, writer, director. I'm not sure exactly what his role is going to be. He may even just be there for the sake of having his name there to kind of draw people to it. I don't know, but to what extent he's going to be involved. But when I heard that instantly caught my attention and immediately made me scared to death, because I don't like it when properties I liked in my youth, or even, not even in my youth, but things that I'm just a fan of, I don't like to see it mistreated. I reacted very negatively to the announcement of Thundercats Roar. When I saw what the Thundercats look like, I was like, that is disrespectful. I mean, that is just downright treating the old property like toilet paper and wiping your ass with it. I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, that is just ridiculous. And like, look, if you want them to be zany cartoon characters, could you at least make them look like cats? I mean, at least meet me halfway. Fuck. And And we have the She-Ra show on Netflix, which I watched about 5 minutes of, and I was like, nope, ain't for me. Nope, I can already tell I'm going to hate this. Can anybody please explain to me why Glimmer looks the way she does? And Glimmer wasn't even, like, one of my favorite characters on that show, but what the... Who approved that design? She looks hideous. And then they took Frosta, who had one of the best designs of the old She-Ra show, and they made her into a racial stereotype, because now she's an Eskimo. And I'm like, okay, that was needed. That was necessary. Okay. All right. Fine. So with these kind of 80s cartoon reboots, I always get, like, a little nervous. And supposedly the new Ninja Turtle show is terrible. I've been told that it's terrible. I like the first one that Nickelodeon did. I thought that was fairly true to the Ninja Turtles and was a lot of fun. But apparently this new one that they've done is just horrible, from what I've heard. But then you get other ones. I thought the Voltron show was solid. I thought it dragged a little bit in the later seasons. I was like, you probably should have ended this, like, a couple seasons ago. But I thought it was a fairly solid reboot. My issues aside, I know it caused a shitstorm online because apparently people were upset that not that a gay ship happened, but the wrong gay ship happened. And I'm like, why do people care so much about shipping? I just don't. I'm an unromantic slob. I don't care. Like, I don't care who's fucking who. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Friendships mean more to me than romantic relationships, especially among fictional characters, because it's like those feel more real, not, hey, I need to fuck something, and again, that's me being an unromantic slob, but anyway, it's a miracle. I'm still single. Is that incredible or what? But anyway, I did think the Voltron Netflix show was pretty solid, and DuckTales Season 1, I had my issues with it, but when it was good, it was really good. I love Scrooge McDuck, and I liked, God, what's his name? His name's slipping. Doctor Who guy. Oh, God, I'm gonna hate myself later. I should know this. Fuck. What is that dude's name? Well, it's gone now. All right, put it in the comments. Who's the? I'm gonna feel so stupid after this. But the Doctor Who guy that's voicing Scrooge McDuck, David Tennant. There we go. Came to my mind. Oh, thank God, David Tennant. I thought he did really great as Scrooge McDuck, and I love Scrooge. Like, Scrooge is one of my all-time favorite fictional characters ever, and so I thought Scrooge was treated really well. When Donald was used, he was great. One of my issues was that they seemed to promise that Donald was going to be like a main character on the show, and he was barely used. And it was like, because that was one of the things that the old DuckTales show didn't do. They didn't use Donald all that much. And the excuse back then was, oh, well, Scrooge has never really been in a show, and all these characters never really been in a show. And if we use Donald, he'll just kind of overshadow all of them. And I could see that point back then. Now, though, it's like, come on, let's have something that closely reflects the Carl Barks comics, and let's have Donald and Scrooge on adventures together. And in Season 1, they seem to focus a lot on the kids, especially Webby. And I was like, guys, I mean, I can't speak for everybody else watching this show, but I'm not here for the kids. I'm here for Scrooge and Donald. And to a lesser extent, Launchpad. But that said, when the show was good, it was really, really good. So maybe they improved things in Season 2. I don't know. I haven't watched Season 2 yet, but I didn't hate the show enough to... I didn't feel like it was disrespectful to DuckTales. I think they just focused their attention on the wrong things. I'm like, guys, Huey and Dewey Louie, yes, have them there. Even Webby from the original show, yeah, okay, fine, have her there, but don't make them the main focus of the show. I'm like, no, I'm here for Scrooge and Donald. And actually, the best episode I saw, the one that I loved the most, was when they brought in Glitter and Goldie, and it was just Scrooge and Goldie having this big adventure with Glomgold, and I was like, yes, that is what I wanted to see. That is exactly what I wanted to see, and that made me happy. But for those who don't know, Glitter and Goldie was Scrooge's girlfriend and an old flame from the old comics, and she was in the original show as well. So it was nice to see her come back and get like this new reboot too. So it was nice that somebody did their homework and brought in Glitter and Goldie. But in any case, so with this He-Man reboot, it could go either way. It might end up being good. Who knows? Might end up being terrible, like Thundercats Roar or the new She-Ra. Who knows? I certainly hope not. I mean, this property is something that gave me a lot of joy when I was a kid, and I would love for, a new generation to get exposed to it. But basically what I want And from what I'm hearing, the show is going to dovetail off the continuity of the original show and, quote, or resolve some of the unresolved storylines. I'm like, the show didn't really have storylines. It was just kind of a bunch of standalone episodes. But I get what they mean. There's like, okay, we never got an origin for Skeletor. We never got an origin for He-Man. We never got a resolution to Teela finding out that her mom's the sorceress and what comes with that. So a lot of that was left unresolved. So okay, I can understand there's something to mine there, and I think that you could probably tell a couple stories with that. But my fear is I'm going to watch this show, and He-Man's going to look like Dave the Barbarian, and it's going to be stupid and overly cartoony, and they're going to feel the need to deconstruct everything and make it, wink at the camera every 5 seconds and do a lot of pop culture references and turn it into something like Adventure Time. And I'm not putting down Adventure Time. It was a good show, but unfortunately, I feel like almost every show that has come out since then, at least for animation, has tried to recapture the success of Adventure Time with varying degrees of success. Gravity Falls was pretty good, obviously, but then you get shows that clearly, like Teen Titans Go, or the new Powerpuff Girls show, where it just looks dumb, it feels dumb, and it's just trying to be goofy for the sake of being goofy and kind of disrespecting what came before it. And I feel like Thundercats Roar is certainly that, and I don't want He-Man to get that treatment. If you want to make it for kids, I'm fine with that. I'm totally okay with that. I would like for kids to get like a real action adventure cartoon show, like not like a stupid one, like not like one that they could actually get invested in, and one like Batman the Animated Series. That's the type of show that I loved as a kid, and I would like to see He-Man given a similar treatment, or something like Young Justice even, because it's like what are the real badass action cartoons that kids are watching today? Because I don't even know. Like it's all like goofy shit. Based on what I've seen, it's all just goofy shit. So now the animation studio that's putting this show together is the same one that worked on the Castlevania series on Netflix, which is awesome. I love the Castlevania show on Netflix. It's by default the best video game adaptation I've ever seen. I will say that. It's the best video game adaptation I've ever seen by default. Doesn't say much, but I think the show's really good, and it looks beautiful. A beautifully animated show. Grisly and violent as hell. Keep that in mind. So if you have a weak stomach, just keep that in mind. But I think it's I think it's a wonderfully animated show. Looks perfect. And actually, when the Godzilla... I'm crossing a lot of bridges here, but bear with me. When the Godzilla anime trilogy was first announced, and I saw what it was going to look like, it was more like that 3D style, and then the Castlevania show came out, and I'm like... Why can't the Godzilla anime look like the Castlevania show? I would have liked that more. Or why can't it look like Attack on Titan or Evangelion or just something not 3D and CGI and kind of shitty looking? But that's another issue for another day. But the Castlevania show looks beautiful, and the same animation team is working on He-Man. I think with those type of character designs and the world of Eternia... the locations like Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain, I think there is plenty of potential for a rebooted He-Man series that could do really, really well and just be this gorgeous fantasy/sci-fi adventure show. I think it could be really, really good. I would want it to look and feel something closer to the Thundercats reboot from 2011 that failed, but... I think that would be the type of show I would want it to be like. Or even something like the 2002 show, which was pretty damn good. And very faithful to the original show while also updating it. And, the only problem I had with that show was that they got a little too heavy into the lore, where it's like, all right, do Cyclone and Buzz-Off really need origin stories? Do we really need to try and make them more important? I don't think you do. I think those can be side characters, and I think we'd be fine. But it was like those guys. They had all the toys when they were kids, and they were bound and determined to write origins for all of them. Which that was part of the brilliance of the original Masters of the Universe, because a lot of the characters did not have origin stories, and the thought process was. The lore of the show, like how He-Man even got the sword, how Adam got the sword, wasn't really that thought out. It was just from what I've heard, the understood concept was, oh, the kids will just make it up themselves. which we kind of did, which is kind of what happened in the 2002 show, where it's a bunch of kids that grew up with Masters of the Universe, and they decided to just plug all of those origins that they cooked up into one show. But that said, I hope it's good. Now, Kevin Smith is involved, and that can be a mixed bag all its own. I appreciate some of Kevin's work. I like Clerks. I like Mallrats. Mallrats actually got me through a rough night. I don't know if I've ever told the story on this channel, but I saw Mallrats for the first time the night my grandmother died. And I was just channel surfing through the movie channels, and I was like, I got this really bad news. I was really depressed. I was like, look, I just need something goofy and silly to get my mind off of this, even for an hour and a half. I just need to kind of I need something to kind of carry me through this bog of misery that I'm currently in. And I've just flipped on HBO or Cinemax, one of the two, and there's Mallrats, and it made me laugh, and I thought it was funny, and it's like, well, Kevin Smith's, theatrical bomb of a movie got me through one of the worst nights of my life. So I appreciate that. And I liked Chasing Amy. I liked Dogma. As a Roman Catholic, I really appreciated Dogma. I like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I liked Clerks 2, and a lot of people tell me that Clerks 2 sucks, and I'm like, you are wrong. That was one of the best theater experiences I've ever had, going to see Clerks 2. I would take my experience seeing Clerks 2, I would rather relive that than literally any of the Marvel movies, including Endgame. And that's not me shitting on Marvel. It says, dude, I love the Clerks 2 theater experience that much. That's how much I enjoyed that theater experience, because it was me, my sister, and a bunch of stoners, and we were laughing our asses off at everything, and it was great. And my sister and I were the only ones not high. It was a wonderful evening. But so yeah, I've appreciated Kevin's work in the past. Appreciate his podcast. I saw him speak in person when he was at AwesomeCon a couple years ago. I appreciate the guy. When was the last time he made a good movie? Probably Clerks 2. Tusk was kind of a mess. Yuga Hausers or whatever the fuck that was terrible. He hasn't made a good movie in a while. And some people have even noticed, have you noticed that Kevin Smith has sucked ever since he started smoking weed? Like, it made his podcasts amazing, because it's just a person who's high, who's just rambling. But it made his movies significantly worse. And I was like, yeah, that's probably true. So I don't know. But he also wrote a couple episodes of, like, The Flash and Arrow and Supergirl and those, like, DC CW shows. And one of his episodes of The Flash was the one where Barry goes into the Speed Force and, works out a bunch of his own personal shit through that. And I thought that was one of the best episodes of the show. So if he directed and wrote that, I'm like, I mean, he still got something there, I would think. So, basically his involvement, I don't know how heavily involved he will be. I don't know exactly what his role is, but, again, like everything else with this, it could go either way. So who knows? Again, I really want this show to be good, because I have a heavy appreciation of that franchise. Look, He-Man, along with Star Wars, He-Man is probably the first thing I ever became a fan of. And I would like to see it treated well. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. And if I see a preview for this thing, and again, if I see He-Man looking like the fucking Thundercats roar thing, I'm going to probably throw something at the TV and then not watch it, because I don't need that aggravation in my life. So, that's my take on all of that, and that's just all I have to say. So we'll know more when the show drops on Netflix, probably sometime next year, or maybe in 2021. Who knows? But that is all I have for you now. Thank you all for listening to me ramble and rant and rave about a bunch of shit. I really appreciate it. I've got a few more videos lined up for you. My top 10 Hacksaw Jim Duggan matches, because I have to do that now. My next Star Wars book review, which is going to be the two remaining Old Republic books that I haven't reviewed, Deceived and Fatal Alliance. And I'm also going to do a preview and predictions video for AEW's All Out. So lots of stuff to cover. You'll be getting a lot of those videos next week. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the little bell icon so you get notified when my videos are posted. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.